My guest on today's episode is a member of one of the best-selling bands of all time. He's been in the music industry for over 30 years, has sold more than 130 million records worldwide, and with his band has sold out arenas across the world. You'll know him for hits such as I Want It That Way. I think you know who I'm talking about, yeah? Backstreet's Back, Quit Playing Games, Show Me the Meaning of Being Lonely, Larger Than Life, As Long As You Love Me, oh, I could go on. He's one of the founding members of Backstreet Boys and has always been a performer since he started dance lessons at the age of 4. He is Alexander James McLean, Alex to his friends, but you know him as AJ from the Backstreet Boys.
The five of us, the communication, the respect, and the openness and honesty is what you don't always see within groups. If any of us have ever gotten the big head for whatever reason, which look, everyone's got an ego. It's some are big, some are small, but we always know how to keep each other in check. You know, I'm hanging out with some random people. One thing led to another. I got drunk, ended up doing drugs. It could have killed me. It didn't. When I flew home the next day, as most addicts do, we try to mask it. But when I got home, my youngest was home. I walked up to give her a hug and she wouldn't give me a hug. And I was like, "What's going on, babe?" And she's like, "I don't know. You don't smell like my daddy." I don't think I've ever been this present in my life. I don't think I've ever been this in tune with who I am. I wake up in the morning, I drop to my knees. I go to bed at night, I drop to my knees. And I say my prayers, I meditate every day. I'll never tell someone, "Hey, you need to get sober." But I will be an ear and a shoulder if needed.
In this episode, we talk about the turning points in AJ's life, the loss of his grandmother who raised him, how he got into Backstreet Boys, and how he addressed his addiction. And he's been in recovery, clean, for 4 years. AJ has had some incredible professional highs and some personal lows. This is the Lulu Podcast, and my guest on Turning Points is AJ McLean. AJ, welcome to the podcast, and
Thank you.
it's just a dream to have you here.
Thank you, my
Because
dear.
I know your band, BSB, the Backstreet Boys, are one of the biggest bands in the world, have been for
32
30
years now.
years or-
32 years.
I mean, really,
Yes.
100. It's unbelievable.
I feel it every morning.
Because-
Oh, yeah. I feel it every morning. 32 years. I feel it in my back. Feel it in my knee. No, I'm kidding. But I do. I do feel
And
it.
you've worked all that time, and you guys have
Wow.
been successful all that time, and sold billions and millions and trillions of albums, of records. It's phenomenal. But what is really strange and fascinating to me is most bands either change one member or another, or they split up. You guys, the same guys, have stayed together for 32 years. That's magical.
It is, it's there's a handful of reasons. Number one is
Go.
the music. The music, we've been so fortunate to have worked with some incredible producers and writers, mainly Max Martin. I would say, in my opinion, one of the greatest songwriters of all time, not just our generation, but of all time. So it starts with the music, then our
Yes.
fans. We have the best fans in the
Yes.
world, all over the world, that have kept
They
us
just
going
love you.
strong, that have been with us since day
Yeah.
one. And then, honestly, I would say probably the most important is the five of us, the communication, the respect, and the openness and honesty is what you don't always see within groups. There's one or two members that might want to go solo, or that, have their own kind of agenda. We don't do, and if any of us have ever gotten the big head for whatever reason, which look, everyone's got an ego. It's some are big, some are small, but we always know how to keep each other in check. If someone starts to get a little too big for their bridges, we're like, "Hey, you got to pump it back." And we've got great families, and we've got great women in our lives that have kept us grounded. Our wives have kept us grounded throughout the years. But 32 years is kind of insane. I mean,
It's
we
it's
just celebrated on
brilliant.
April 20th was our anniversary. 32 years together.
32 years. It's
I
well,
mean,
congratulations for that.
wow.
You
Yeah.
mentioned, you just mentioned how you have strong women around you who support you. And I know I like to always sort of, because this podcast about turning points in people's lives. And I love to ask my friends who I have had on to try to go deep. Tell me something that we haven't talked about. You haven't talked about a lot because famous people talk about themselves, are asked a lot of questions about themselves. But the woman thing, I know you were brought up by your mother and your grandmother.
Hmm.
So that has to have had an amazing influence
A
on you.
hundred percent.
And but no father influence because your father disappeared at one point
Mhm.
and he came back. We'll talk about that in a
Mhm.
minute. But having two women bring you up is obviously giving you that kind of perspective that you've got
A
that you
hundred
just
percent.
mentioned
A
about
hundred
women.
percent. I was raised in so many words to put women up on a pedestal and to look up to women. And, I grew up in musical theater. So I was surrounded by women and all of my gays, which I'm a huge advocate for the LGBTQ plus. I always will be for the rest of my days. So it wasn't the normal childhood for, most, because again,
No, no.
nobody forced me to go into theater or into music or dance. My mom and my grandmother wanted me to do whatever made me happy. And I was that kind of quirky, dorky kid that didn't have a lot of friends, unless they were in the entertainment world or theater world. But I loved that world. I loved that space. And my mom worked and my grandfather worked, but my grandmother really was kind of my biggest advocate, my biggest fan. She was the one that would pick me up from school, take me to my auditions. She was everything to me. And she was a musician herself,
Mm.
but
Ah,
she
there's
got
there's the kind of the genes,
yeah,
maybe,
but
huh?
she got stage fright. She was an amazing piano player and kind of a jazz singer, if you will. And
Mm-hmm.
when she was living in New York, she had the opportunity to perform one night and she couldn't do it and she gave up. But she would
Mm-hmm.
never let me give up. Not that I ever wanted to, but it's a finicky
It's an
business.
interesting. I mean, because I follow an Eastern path and I believe in karma. I believe in, so there's a karmic thing there. Your
Mhm.
grandmother, she's the one who couldn't quite make it, but she mentored you and encouraged you.
100%,
That's
a hundred
amazing.
percent. And that's kind of transcended through me with my kids, with my two girls is, whatever they want to do, whether it's right now, they are amazing dancers. They both sing. They're
But
both
that's a gift you've got too,
yes. I mean,
dancing as well as
but
singing.
I've taken the same approach with them to, whatever they want to take, whatever path it is. I 100 million percent support it and I encourage it. I never say you have to do this or you can't do that. The word can't
Mm-hmm.
doesn't is not part of my vernacular when it comes to my kids.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned that from my mom and from my, grandmother. My mom is one of my best friends. I mean, I talk to my mom 2 or 3 times a week and we are very much the same, whether it comes to music, or movies or whatever. Like my mom is my homie.
I have a similar thing with my son, interestingly enough, and with my grandson. Um,
Yes,
so I think it's like you're lucky if you have that relationship because it teaches you
it
how to
does.
be with women. For instance, I mean, you have two girls, but parenting when you didn't, I mean, being a father rather. Did you feel you had to learn or you could have learned more? Was there an issue there because your father wasn't really around?
um,
I
y-
mean, I know you reunited,
yeah, I mean,
but
honestly,
you didn't have him as a child.
I think it was the opposite. It was one of those situations where it's like
You didn't need
I
him.
don't want to be my dad. So I'm gonna be who I am. I'm gonna take
Hmm,
the road less traveled, and I'm still learning
right.
as a father. I mean, I've got a preteen now. My oldest is 12, And, there's
Uh-oh.
already talks of boys, which is
Of course.
killing me. But at the
You want
same
to put a
time,
moat around the house,
oh,
right?
oh
Not
yeah,
let them in or out.
more than that. But yes, but
Yes.
it, I've had this conversation with my wife about my my approach to my girls, which is, look,
Yeah.
if you give them the freedom to make their own choices and to not be distrusted, then I think it makes them want to be better people because they
Mm,
don't want to lose your trust. Both of my kids have one trait that I hope they never lose, which is they tell on themselves. If they do something wrong, they just come out and say it. They can't lie.
wow.
Kids will tell little white lies. That's fine. But as
Yes.
far
We
as
all do.
big, 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 big lies, they don't lie to me or to mommy. And I hope that they never lose that trait, you know?
I hope so too. That is magic. I mean, first of all, it's like they feel confident, they feel safe
Mm.
to tell you everything. And that's the only way you can help. But
Yeah,
you're a man who has actually, um, you've been through the mill. You've had
a little bit.
incredible success,
Mm.
phenomenal success. And for instance, Millennium, when it came out, it was like one the biggest album in the world. It was
Yeah.
the biggest. That's hard to deal with, I believe.
Yeah.
And then I don't want to. I shouldn't be jumping into this question, but your grandmother died around the same time, and I
Yeah.
don't know who teaches how to grieve. And when we're famous and we're on top of the world, it's like we talk about mental health today, and I talk about it because I now have a trust um, called Lulu's Mental Health because my family are rife with that sort of stuff. And I've experienced issues myself, a lot of issues. But so your relationship with your daughters, you've like broken a cycle, or you've just cut to the chase where the kids are open, you can support them. If they're in trouble, that's what I hear.
Yes.
You can help if
No,
they
a
come to
hundred, a
you.
hundred. Yes. I mean, now it's come to the place where, you know, fortunately for both my girls, you know, it's not it's not unheard in the world that that I'm an alcoholic and I'm an addict. And, I've been sober now for almost 4 years. And it is, and I've been in and out of the rooms for over 25 years. And luckily for my kids, they've never, not once seen me drunk or high. They never will. They never have to. But it is talked about in my house. And I have explained to my girls because they're both very, very in tune with what's going on in the world. They're very smart girls. And I mean, I could be on FaceTime traveling the world somewhere, drinking a bottle of, Sprite.
Whatever.
And if they look at
Right.
it and don't see the label, they're like, Daddy, is that alcohol? Like, no, it's not. And trust
They're
me,
on your case.
yeah. And then I'm like, trust me, baby, Daddy wouldn't be on FaceTime with you if it was. Let's just say it
Yes,
that way.
you
But
exactly.
yes, but
So that was because this show is about turning points. Would you say that was a turning point in your? I mean, you've had a few. We
the
haven't even
biggest turning point
recognized
for
them.
me was 3.5 years ago. I was doing a show in Miami, on my own with a friend of mine, and I went out that night. I went hard. Luckily for me, dodged a huge bullet because the fentanyl crisis hadn't escalated to where it is now, but it was happening. It was
Life.
out there, but it wasn't as much common knowledge as it is today.
Hmm.
And at that point in my life, I had taken all of the dealers out of my phone. So I didn't know anybody in Miami. So I'm hanging out with some random people. One thing led to another. I got drunk, ended up doing drugs. It could have killed me. It didn't for, whatever reason, but it could have,
You've got more to do.
clearly. But when I flew home the next day, as most addicts do, we try to mask it. I drank a crap ton of coffee and tried to, breath mints and all this stuff. But my wife already knew and was just waiting for me to be honest, which was my biggest problem for years, was being honest with anyone about it because I was trying to make it work. And of course, as we know, it worked until it didn't. But when I got home, my oldest was at dance class. My youngest was home. I walked up to give her a hug and she wouldn't give me a hug. And I was like, "What's going on, babe?" And she's like, "I don't know. You don't smell like my daddy." And that was it. Like the
Whoa.
biggest light bulb in the world went off. And I was like, "What are you doing? Why are you still doing this?" And the next day I went back to a meeting and I have been sober ever since. But this time is different. This time I'm doing what has been suggested. I'm doing my 12 steps. I'm showing up. And my sponsor has told me it's the spiritual path or the psychopath. And I've done the psycho thing for a long enough time. I've done the psycho thing long enough.
And
Yeah.
I think you're very fortunate, you're very blessed that you've actually had the courage to do this.
Mm,
As you said, you've tried a couple of times and you didn't stay the full, time.
right.
But to go back, not easy. So God
Mm-mm.
bless you.
Yeah. I
God
mean,
bless you.
it's, and what's so crazy
A
is,
lot of courage.
thank you. I've seen people come and go. I've
Mm-hmm.
lost about 12 friends to fentanyl within the
Mm-hmm.
last 2.5 years. I've seen staples in the sober community, guys that have had 2 decades go out, and it's humbling because, again, if we stop doing the work on ourselves and we're not being of service of other alcoholics and addicts, it's gonna catch up and it's gonna win. This disease is so cunning, baffling, powerful. It will win if you don't do what you're supposed to do. And I couldn't
See?
be, I don't think I've ever been this present in my life. I don't think I've ever been this in tune with who I am. I wake up in the morning, I drop to my knees. I go to bed at night, I drop to my knees. And I say my prayers, I meditate every day. And it's insane. And look, I don't I'll never tell someone, "Hey, you need to get sober." But it
Yes.
will be an ear and a shoulder if needed. And all I can do
That's
is
great.
is
That's all
be
you can do.
suggestive. Yeah, all I can do is be
Yeah.
suggestive
That's all you can do.
and share my story. And hopefully
Yeah.
something in that story rings a bell with someone.
Resonates with
Yeah.
somebody else.
And
And
that's
that's
that's all I can do.
in life.
Yeah.
In life, I think that's a very powerful commitment. That I'm not going to be proselytizing, I'm not going to be telling people what they should do.
Yeah.
But if they know what I've been through, maybe they'll come to me and I can
Yeah, I
support
mean,
them.
and even outside of recovery, like, I've been asked in
Yeah. Yeah.
multiple interviews, "Hey, there's these new boy bands, there's these new groups. Do you have any advice for a new group forming?" And it's like,
Right.
look, I'm not going to tell you what to do or what not to do. I'll say get a good lawyer. That's a good thing to start. You know,
Business. That's a business piece of
Yes,
advice. Yeah.
because we went through the ringer for many years, but we came out the other end. But what I will do is the same thing I do when it comes to recovery. I'll share my story of what I've been through and what I learned not to do and what I learned to do. And if that helps a new group or a new artist that's coming up, great, you know?
And that's what's great about that you're being open,
Mhm.
because then, because I personally believe that, well, I know from talking to people, they think if you have hit records, if you're famous, if you make money, you're happy clappy and the world is or you're a clam. You're happy as a clam.
Mhm.
But shit
Yeah.
happens. And I think the great thing about being in recovery is what I'm hearing from you is you say you're present. So whatever shit's going down, if you're present, you can look at it and maybe make choices that you never could when you were not present.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to butcher this saying, but loosely, the past, you can't go back and do anything. The future
Right.
is a mystery. And today, the present, it says it in the word, is a gift.
It's a gift. I got it.
So,
You said it
you know,
perfectly.
stay in
Perfectly.
the now. My biggest
Ah,
problem was always projecting and always looking into
yes.
what needs to happen, what I need to do. And it's like, you know
Me
what?
too. I
No, I don't
always
care. Yeah.
run.
And
I'm with you.
I
I
can't worry
understand it.
about what's going to happen tomorrow. You know, all I can do
Well,
is get through today and do what I need to do today. That's it.
well, I'm 76 and I'm just learning this stuff. So I am so impressed
You
that
look
at your
incredible.
age.
Holy shit.
Oh, thank you. Well,
When you
thank you. That's very
when
kind.
you said you're a grandma, I almost interjected and I was like, wait, what?
I'm just a
What?
I'm just a 60s babe. I'm a
Hey,
60s babe.
that's awesome.
But I do want to go back. We're talking about the past, the present, the future. Want you to tell me something about, take me back to the start of BSB because I know we talked about, your musical theater you talked about.
Mhm.
I would never have thought you were musical theater because I think you're more hip hop than musical theater. I think
Oh,
you're like Mr. Cool,
oh, thank
and
you.
I don't think that musical theater is nothing, but
Mm,
I see you in it as in a different genre. But so I do know one thing: a boy at 14 years old he's going through, and this is astrologically because I'm into astrology a bit.
My
That
mom is too.
they have a Saturn return,
Mm.
and that means your life changes. For instance, I mean, I'm not a boy, but when I was 14, I made my first hit record. I had my first hit record back in the 60s. And then I know lots of other people who've had huge. When you were 14, tell us what happened to you because I think this is what people want to hear. This is what I want to hear.
Yeah, I
How did
mean,
it begin?
so I grew up in South Florida, which is where I was doing musical theater, in in uh Boca Raton, Florida. There was a theater called the Royal Palm Dinner Theater. So I grew up doing theater, and my whole dream was to be an actor. That's what I wanted to do, which I still want to do, and I'm still going to do. I manifested it's going to happen, and I just don't know when, but it will happen. Um, but so I sang and I danced because it was kind of a package deal. When you do musical theater, you're going to sing, you're going to
Right.
dance, da 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 da. And
And was that from going to acting school or
I did do some
training or
acting school. I started
right?
dancing when I was 4 years old, and
I knew that.
yeah.
4 years
4
old.
years old, I was in ballet, jazz, tap. I loved to dance. And so cut to my mom and my family and I moved to Central Florida. We moved to Orlando in 1991. And
Hmm.
I got a job on a TV show at Nickelodeon called Hi Honey, I'm
Oh
Home.
yes,
And
yes.
the show got picked up from Nickelodeon and was going to get moved to ABC to go prime time.
Hmm.
And in that
Right.
transition, the producer of the show decided to fire me because I was too tall. I was supposed to be the main lead character, my older brother on the show. I was his younger brother, but I was still growing and I was significantly taller than him. And I was going to continue to grow. And if the show did well, it just would have looked weird that the younger brother is towering over the older brother. So they let me go. And I was like, all right, well, that's fine. And we used to get this thing in the mail in Orlando called the Blue Sheet, which was basically like the classifieds for local entertainers in the Orlando area. And so I get the Blue Sheet. My mom's going through it, looking to see if there's any auditions for anything coming up.
Hmm.
And she didn't, nothing caught her eye. So I said, let me take a look at it. So I'm looking through it. And on the second to last page, in the top of this page, it had this little blurb that said local entrepreneur looking to form a vocal harmony group a la Boys to Men meets New Kids on the Block. Five white guys, da 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 da.
And
And
that's what you
and
are.
I was like, what do you think, Mom? I mean, can I try? She's like, sure, babe, if you want. So I put
Can I
together,
interject for a
yeah, of
minute? Just let me
course.
hold that thought. Hold that thought. So with the voice that you have, because I see you as the lead singer. I mean, the thing about BSB is every single guy can sing on their own. They're great on their own.
Mm.
But sorry, I see you as the lead singer.
Well,
That's how
thank
it's
you.
always been for me. And I don't want to, go on anymore about it. But nobody recognized that when you were a child that you had this
I
voice.
mean,
Not
obviously,
really.
obviously, the gentleman who put us together, Lou Pearlman, who is now
Did.
dead and gone. He obviously saw something because he signed me on the spot. And,
Yeah,
he was like,
I
"You're
can
it."
understand.
So the ongoing, I don't want to say joke, but the ongoing fun fact, if you will, is that I am the
Yes.
OG member. I helped put the group together.
The original. I know
Yes,
that. Yes.
1992 is when I met
Oh my
Lou.
God.
So a
Oh
whole
my God.
year before the group actually formed, I was the first member. So I choreographed some of the
That's very because
auditions.
we have a very I mean I think you probably have heard of Take That, and it
Oh,
all
of
started with
course.
Gary.
Yeah.
It all started with
Gary's one of my
Gary.
best buds. I mean, I've known Gary for years. Gary and
Well,
I,
he's also like
Robbie and I obviously have a really deep connection. We very similar paths we've taken in
been
our
through it
life.
together.
We've been through the ringer together.
Through it
Yes.
together. Yes.
And
Yes.
he's come out incredible. Oh God, he's such a sweetheart. Um,
It's amazing. It's so good.
but yeah, so
Such a good
I literally helped choreograph. I choreographed some of the guys that didn't come with a dance number. Howie and Nick were the
and help
next
them
two
out.
that were chosen. Howie had to
Yeah.
re-audition a year later almost because he had a stage name, not unlike AJ, which is my stage name. Alex is my real name.
Yes. I know.
But Howie used to go under the pseudonym Tony Dinetti, even though he doesn't look Italian
Ah!
at all. Him and I are both Puerto Rican, and it's like you don't look Italian at all, bro. But okay.
Instead of the name kind of says, yeah, come down,
Yeah,
I'll sort
exactly.
you,
Like,
I'll
how you
sort you
doing? I'm
out.
Tony Dinetti. It's
How
like,
you doing? How
dude,
you doing? Yeah, yeah.
you know.
But it's not him. Not
So
him, right.
the casting director couldn't find a Howard DeRoe. They're like, no, we have a Tony Dinetti and this. So he had to re-audition. So now you've got the three of us. There were two other members before Kevin and Brian, and one of them was a singer-songwriter, wanted to be solo, and was like, look, dude, this is a group. You can't be solo in a group. So he quit. We got Kevin. The other member, Charles, God bless his heart, it just didn't work out. Howie and him went to college together. So we made Howie be the one to let him go, which was painful, but it's like, hey, you know the guy
Aw.
better, you fire him.
Yeah. You tell him, yeah.
And then so now we're four, and we're thinking of going back to the same roster that had auditioned in the beginning to see if we can find a fifth member. And Kevin kept talking about, listen, guys, I have this cousin who lives in Lexington. I know he can sing. He sings in the church choir. I think he can dance. He's a good-looking kid. What do you think? And we're like, well, we've kind of hit a wall here, so we don't really have a choice. So he called his cousin, who was a junior in high school at the time, and Brian got pulled out of class. He was a straight A student. He got sent to the principal's office. He's like, what the hell? What the hell did I do? And his cousin's on the phone, and he's like, what are you doing calling me in school, pulling me out of class? He's like, what up, cuz? Listen, I'm in this group. Do you want to be in this group?
This is important.
And he's like, okay, well, I got to ask my parents. He's like, no, I already talked to your parents. It's all good. We're going to send a, plane ticket. So Brian flew to Orlando. And 3 weeks later, April 20th of 1993 was our first show. It was the first official moment that Backstreet Boys were seen. We did Grad Night 93 at SeaWorld, and no one knew who we were. Obviously.
That's graduation night.
Graduation night for the eighth graders.
Brits, yeah.
For the eighth graders going into high school. No one knew who the hell we were. But we did get a taste of things to come. Nick and I went out to sing in the crowd to some girls, and these girls were like grabbing at us and screaming and crying. And I was like, what is happening? Little did I know this was going to become a staple with us. Even grown women now are crying, which is weird. But hey, you know what? You obviously have an attachment to the music, to us, a special moment in your life. So it is awesome.
So 25 years. Well, what does that say to you? 25 years in the business, album?
Yeah, I mean, this is the 25th anniversary this year of our biggest album, Millennium.
Yeah,
which is insane. It's like Jesus,
and it is insane, and it's coming. You've re-recorded some of it. Tell us what the thing is with it.
So
new stuff in it.
So for the past like 7 years, I've been planting seeds with my bandmates to do something around the Millennium album, the 25th anniversary. You know, I threw out the
Because
idea of doing a tour, which was just not feasible. And then, doing something and
to celebrate.
just to commemorate and to celebrate 25 years
Yes,
of our
yes.
biggest album. And the biggest venue in the world kind of, I don't want to say fell in our lap, but for lack of better words, fell in our lap, was presented to us by our management to do Sphere Las Vegas, which is the biggest venue in the world. And it's the most innovative, futuristic venue. So Millennium being this futuristic concept album, putting it out in 99, going into the millennium, Y2K, everyone thinks that the whole world's going to shut down and nothing happened.
Right.
It just went from 99 to 00. That's it. So we decided, okay, we're going to bring the millennium to Sphere Las Vegas, and then re-release the album. We literally, one of the other things that I mentioned to the guys, I'm like, guys, if we're going to do this, we should reshoot the album cover like the original, shot for shot, everything shot for shot. So we did just that. We reshot all the
I like that
photos
idea.
from the original
Yeah.
album, shot for shot. We
Oh,
did a
great.
promo with the original airplane from the I Want It That Way video, which in person looked like shit, pardon me saying, because it had been used in movies and things over the years, but we obviously, with the magic of special effects, made it look like it did in the video. But we have 25 songs on this album. We have the original 12 that have been
Yes.
remastered. We have
Right.
6 unheard records, demos, if you will, from that time period, and then 5 acoustic versions of songs during that time, and then 1 brand new single, which is out now called Hey.
Hey, I
Now,
know.
you can only get that song if you pre order the album, which will be released July 11th, which is the first show of the
The first show
residency in Las Vegas.
in Vegas.
Yes.
That's 11th. So everybody remember 11th of July is when they open. It's when you can get the album. But it's such. I like the idea of what you did because it's honoring the past and then honoring the present.
I mean, and
So
going into
it's
the future. I mean, being in this venue,
I
like this whole process right now, we just finished shooting content for the show, and then we go into rehearsals next month. Well, for the next 2 months until opening night, and I said this to our manager on set while we're shooting content, because we're looking at things through VR goggles to kind of see, like, you're inside the venue, looking at how things are going to pan out and how they're going to look, and it's just like, if you would have told me 25 years ago that this is how I would be looking at a show, I would be like,
this is what we'd be
what?
doing. Yes.
What are you talking about?
Yes. Yes.
Meanwhile, my daughters, I got them both the same VR for Christmas. So they're into the now, but
They're totally into the
yeah,
now,
but I
right?
was like, this is just the weirdest, coolest way of
Cool.
doing
It's
things
cool.
now. And this
And
venue,
if I can explain, yes, explain the venue about the screens and
so
how
four of us went to see the Eagles because, we had never been in the venue. We had never seen what the venue is. Sensory overload, number one. It's a 300-foot plus screen, 160 something thousand speakers, haptic
Whoa.
seats, which mean that the seats vibrate and move based on whatever's happening on the
The
screen.
music. Wow.
But we went to see the Eagles. We know all the Eagles songs. I grew up with the Eagles because of my mom.
Right.
But
Right.
essentially, they're the soundtrack to this giant movie that you're watching. And it's kind of overwhelming. It's like you don't want to miss the content, but you want to watch your favorite band. The difference with us is we're still going to do a show like Backstreet Boys do. We're still dancing. We're still going to be running around on stage. It's going to be a typical Backstreet Boys show, elevated extremely, but the content is going to be unlike anything anyone's ever seen.
Mind-blowing, I think.
And we have a couple
Mind-blowing.
of tricks up our sleeve too that
Oh my
no one has
God.
done inside this venue. Some of them are a little terrifying, but we're going to make it work.
Woo! Oh my God.
And so I strongly believe people are going to have to go see the show more than once to
I was
really
just going to
to really
say,
see
yes.
every little detail, because there's a lot of Easter eggs. A lot of people are going to come and watch us, and they might look up once or twice. Others are going to come and watch the screen and maybe look
And
down
not do
twice.
enough
Yeah.
watching you. Yes,
So you're
yes.
going to have to see the show, in my opinion, more than once to really
More than once.
encompass the whole thing as a full entity. But yeah, I mean, and just so people know, we are doing the entire Millennium album. Um,
Unbelievable.
some medleys here and there. Plus, we have some of our favorites and a couple of other tricks up our sleeve, which I can't give anything away. But yes,
Well, I'm so excited. But can you just tell me? I could talk to you for hours, of course, and there's so many things about your life we haven't touched on. But you have two identities,
Mm. I
and
do.
I totally relate to it because I'm the same.
I
I'm
do.
exactly the same.
I do,
So
but they
tell me
can
about the two.
coexist. Yes.
Tell me about that.
So,
Talk about that.
so about 2 years ago, I went to Scottsdale, Arizona, to a intensive outpatient program called the Meadows, and it wasn't for sobriety. It was more for um, a couple of
It
things.
wasn't to get sober.
No, it
It
wasn't
was
to
to
get
look at
sober.
what
It was
look at why you did what you did in the first
yes,
place.
my
Yes.
my two biggest issues that were kind of the precipice for my disease personally was love and relationship addiction, as well as extreme low self-esteem. And a lot of people would look at me and be like, how in the hell do you have low self-esteem doing what you do? I'm like, it's a lot easier than you think. I did not like the person I was. I wasn't comfortable. The only place I felt safe was on stage. I felt untouchable. I felt comfortable. But the minute I walked off stage, I didn't know how to turn the off switch on. I felt that I needed to be this character 24/7, to have acceptance, to be loved, to have the attention from women, from people, from other artists, whatever it was, even my own family. And
Yeah. Yeah.
going to the Meadows, I learned boundaries, which I never had in my life. I was, I am a very codependent person, but I've learned to dial it back. I've learned that no is a complete sentence. Um, Boundaries to me is the biggest thing, but the number one thing that I learned is authenticity, and knowing that AJ is a character in a band, which is great, and that what I do is a job. It doesn't define me. It is a job.
100%.
It's a
It is
job,
a job.
and it's a job that I love. It's a job that I
I'm
wouldn't have
with
it any
you. I'm
other
with
way.
you.
But
Right.
I am reintroducing the world to Alexander James. I have a solo record coming out this year. I have an EP coming out this summer. I have a single coming out this summer. Everything is under my actual name. I'm not doing anything solo under the name
Ah.
AJ McLean. Everything is under Alexander James. AJ is reserved for Backstreet Boys. Alexander James is me on my own, standing on
And
my own
there's your
2 feet.
boundary.
Yes.
There's your boundary.
And I tell people that I meet for the first time, hey, because people are like, hey, should I call you AJ? Should I call you Alex? I'm like, if I'm not doing something with the group, and this is a
I'm
boundary,
Alex.
I would prefer if you call me Alex. And even my own bandmates, I told my bandmates, I said, guys, when we're not working, can you try to call me Alex? And
Help me
it took
out
them a
here.
while,
Yeah.
but now
Yeah.
now they've been able to kind of switch it over, and it just feels nice. It feels right. It feels nice. It feels
It
genuine, and that's
I
all I want.
really one of my favorite words is authentic.
Mhm.
So authenticity is what you're talking about, and the boundaries and stuff. I mean, we never heard of these kind of things. I never heard of them growing
No,
up.
no,
So
no,
I'm also
absolutely
like
not.
you, learning, and I'm way older than you, but I'm learning about all those things. And I mean, even if you think, let's think about Beyonce. She mentioned it with Sasha Fierce. There are two people, but sometimes the lines, blurred lines, and that's what happens because you were so young. I had the same issue.
Mm.
And in my book, I read about it in great depth So I can relate to you in more ways than one.
Do you know?
And
Do you know who Brene Brown is?
I certainly do. And how
So
do you get
yeah,
authentic?
so she
You
when I was
share
yeah,
the
so when
shade.
I was in the Meadows two summers ago, I had
Yeah,
never heard of her. And in one of our
right.
sessions, we watched a YouTube video, and she has a mantra that I have tattooed on my arm now, which
Oh my
is
God.
braving, which stands for boundaries, reliability, accountability, vault, integrity, non-judgment, and gratitude. So I live by that daily. And I have
Mm.
not seen her do one of her TED Talks. I am dying to meet her. I feel like she'll become like my second mom. I really, really want to meet this woman and just give her a
I
hug.
wanted,
I just want to give her a
I
hug.
wanted to be my best friend. I agree with
Literally,
you.
I just want to give her
I,
a hug and say thank you. You don't know me from Adam,
yes.
but thank you.
Yeah. Because I think, you know, being famous and being, having money and all that success, a lot of young people today, this is the thing that's going to fill the hole in the soul,
Mm.
that's going to make them feel complete. But in fact, there are so many things you have to deal with that success. I mean, I just want to ask you one thing. Can I ask one? What
Yes.
about the fact that you had that Millennium, that huge, one of the biggest albums ever, and at the same time, your grandmother, who is obviously a great influence, your mentor, she helped you grow up, she died. So when you become famous and you're in the public eye, you have to say you're happy because you're successful. But how do you deal with grief and both of those things? I never had a teacher to help me.
No, I
So
didn't have the
people like
tools then.
Brene Brown
Yes. No,
are
there was
great.
no one to
And,
teach me that.
and how do you cope with it?
Well,
To be honest
I
with you,
coped with it with drugs
numb
and
the pain.
alcohol, unfortunately. But over the years, I have learned how to grieve. I have learned that it is a process.
Yes.
I lost my stepdad a few years back, and watching my mom go through this process, I was grieving along with her and for her.
Mm-hmm.
And but I was able to be present for her. I was able to be there for her, where if I wasn't where I am today, I wouldn't be able to do that. And even though people
Great.
were there for me when my grandmother passed away, I didn't want to hear it. I was mad at God. I was mad at the universe. I was mad at everyone. I didn't want, I was like, how in the world can you take someone so special away from me? But looking back after I worked through the grieving process, now I get to have a clear mind, and I get to remember during the Millennium tour, my grandmother being right in the pit. She got to see me perform one of the biggest tours we've ever done. And she got to and she just sat there and smiled. I get to
There you
remember
go.
that every day. And I get to hold that here every day. And every February 7th, I honor my grandmother every year. That's her birthday. And it'll be that way. And I get to, share stories with my kids about my grandma. And it's the best thing in the world. Yeah.
So in fact, she hasn't really gone
Oh,
anywhere.
no, no. She's with me all the time. And I know
She's around.
because just like you spoke about astrology and all these things, I'm a big butterfly guy. So every day,
You,
like clockwork, no matter where I am, if I'm on the golf course, if I'm walking into an airport, if I'm walking into a hotel, or if I'm just sitting out here on my balcony, every day at some point, I see a butterfly. And that is my grandmother checking in, just saying, hey, are you
lovely.
good today? And I'm good.
That's so lovely.
Today, I'm good.
Well, that's a beautiful way for us to finish up. And I feel we didn't even get started. So, it was so great to talk to you. And I love the idea of your grandmother being a butterfly. Oh, what a real meeting of souls. We have so much in common. Emotionally, I felt like we were really in sync and we could have gone on and on. AJ McLean is so self-aware. He has come through a lot and is down to earth. Very open, which is unusual in our industry and so helpful, I think, for those who are going through very similar issues. He's worked hard at his career, but he's worked hard on himself too. He's worked hard on changing himself. Change isn't easy, especially when you're battling an addiction and you're in the public eye. I have so much respect for him because he's put in the work. Like AJ, if you're struggling, there is help out there. I've put some links in the show notes along with more details of our conversation. But if you have any questions or if there's anything you'd like to talk about, drop me an email at lulu@whistledown.net. The Lulu Podcast, Turning Points, is a Whistledown podcast. Our producer is Faye Lyons White. Follow us on Instagram at the Lulu Podcast, and don't forget to rate or review us wherever you get your podcasts. Until next time, bye. Oh, just before I go, let me tell you about an amazing new podcast from Whistledown. It's The Power Sisters. They are Rachel, Elaine, and Caroline, three of the sassiest, most single-minded women you'll ever meet. They're old school friends and mentors for life, and they're so funny.
I mean, money worries are difficult
when you
in a
can't
relationship.
pay the bills, you cannot have a healthy relationship.
Shall we take away your salary? My mother is, of age, and she's still looking.
Yeah, your mum looks
gorgeous.
amazing.
Where are you going? I said, I'm recording a podcast. Oh, yeah, you, Auntie Rachel, trying to be famous.
Yes, we're not trying. We're not trying. We are.
I said, you're rude. We're not trying.
Welcome to the Power Sisters.
That's Power Sisters. Listen to them on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts.